Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Human rights groups are urging women to speak up and report abuses to the police so their abusers are prosecuted. This follows some chilling stories of women who have endured years of abuse at the hands of their spouses and are dying in silence. Executive Director of the ACT Foundation and human rights activist Angela Dwamna-Boaji believes the only way to deal with this is for women to understand the gravity of the matter of abuse and take steps to seek redress. We'll hear from her shortly. But first, listen to a 33-year-old Habiba with 2 children who is seeking separation from her husband after she was subjected to severe assault in their marital home.
I went into, depression 5 months ago. My kids were taken away from me for a while. My mommy took my kids for a while, and when I got better, they gave my kids back to me.
When I saw the pictures of how Habiba looked the night her husband allegedly physically assaulted her, I was taken aback, with blood gushing from under her eye. Then she showed me pictures of her swollen head after she had been cleaned up at the 37 military hospital where she sought medical attention. She still has very visible marks on her face from the bruises she suffered, something she hides so well with her sunglasses and veil. She narrated what happened that Monday night in her matrimonial home at Lakeside Estate.
My husband physically abused me. He beat the hell out of me. In fact, he punched my face and my head so many times and left me with bruises. And he left me bleeding in the midst of our children, in front of our children, while the elder one was crying and pleading with him to stop, but he just ignored and kept going at it. He just kept punching my face and punching my face, asking me to leave his house. And he wants to make sure he destroys my face so no other man will see me and marry me again. So we had
what started as an argument over decision to allow her husband spend time with his 3 other wives as she worked towards starting a new business did not go down well with the husband who had initially agreed. The horrifying ordeal of exchanging words, some of which were unprintable, and the physical assault that followed were witnessed by Habiba's 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old.
While the elder one was crying and pleading with him to stop, but he just ignored and kept going at it. He just kept punching my face and punching my face, asking me to leave his house. And he wants to make sure he destroys my face so no other man will see me and marry me again. While all this was going on, my daughter was crying, "Daddy, stop beating mommy. Daddy, my mommy. Daddy, stop beating my mommy." But he kept going on at it. So now the baby was crying, the little girl was crying and begging, but he just didn't listen to them.
Habiba recounts the punches were aimed only at her head and face, and her attempts to prevent them were fruitless.
He had a ring on. He just kept, not the wedding band sort of, no, the men fashion rings, the silver rings, yes. So he kept throwing punches at me, left, right. I went down to protect my face, and I had both hands protecting my face, and now he was punching my head.
That's a detailed report of the woman who was abused by her husband. Well, Maxwell Agbagba caught up with the husband, and he had this to say.
Is my wife. She is still my wife, and it's unfortunate this thing has occurred, and I deeply regretted for what has happened. I myself have sent her messages of apologies. And I hope and pray, first of all, God will forgive me, and Habiba herself will also forgive me, and the public entirely will also forgive me. As I promise, this will never happen in my life anymore. Is woman, even though I have been attempted, or sorry to say, it's just a temptation, and hopefully this thing will never happen again. And I really fully regretted of what has happened. Even though up to now I have not seen her myself, but I did apologize. I did send series of messages apologizing of what has happened. And I still want to emphasize that I'm sorry to Habiba. It will never happen again. Yes, she has been my friend for a long time. We've been treating each other good. We stay nicely. But it's unfortunate that things like this has happened in our lifetime. For the past or more than 5 years, we've never troubled ourselves. It has never happened. This is the first time it has happened. But I really feel sorry, and I hope this will be the first and last. It will never happen again.
That's Habiba's husband. I don't have his name at the moment, but let's just start the conversation. I have two women in the studio to do this conversation, and we'll look at the bigger picture. But of course, this is our referral point. Gloria Ofoiboidu, she's the president, she's a lawyer. She's also the president for WABA. WABA is the Women's Assistance and Business Association. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Also here in the studio is Evelyn Bobo Kublenu, who is the national coordinator for DOPSU. Madam Kublenu, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start this conversation by asking you to tell me what you think about the man's response to what he did and the backlash that he's received. Basically, let me start with you, Ms.
We call it the psychology of the perpetrator. Perpetrators are usually people who cannot handle their anger or who have issues. They have problems. And we always say that if you are in an abusive situation, please protest and report it so that the perpetrator is warned. And there's this poem of a woman who said, "He gave me flowers." That's the title of the poem. He beat me up on my head. He apologized and gave me flowers. The next time he hit me on my back, he apologized and gave me flowers. Another time he hit me in my chest, he apologized and gave me flowers. Today, he apologized and put flowers on my grave. You get the picture?
Right.
So anytime you hear of the apology and you keep going and you keep being abused, you finally have flowers on your grave. So if anyone is in an abusive situation, it's simply unacceptable, and that's how women should see it.
When you hear the man say, he uses words like, I hope the country, the public will forgive me, I regret, I am apologizing, and he says, hopefully this will not happen again. And I take note of that very critically. He says, hopefully this will not happen again. Madam Kublenu, what do you make of his response?
Yeah, we always hear this kind of apologies. Perpetrators have some kind of way when they have done something and then they are caught, and then they will find a way to say, I'm sorry. But it's like that their motive, they've done it, and then so if we don't send him to court or do anything to him, others who are watching, who are seeing what have happened, so they will beat. Tomorrow they will say, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
And then another time they'll do something. As my sister just said, you beat and you give me flower. Tomorrow you give me flowers. Another day I'll be in a grave, and then you put flowers on my grave.
But so, quite frankly and sincerely and fairly, when this gentleman says we've been together for many years and this has never happened. I mean, we all have our first times, right? Things happen to us that we've never seen in our lives. And he says, I was tempted and I failed at it. We all deserve a second chance, don't we? And here is a gentleman who says, this has never happened. I've been nice to my wife has been nice to me. This is a first time, and it will never happen again. Does he not deserve a second chance in this situation?
You know, when I heard Abiba's interview, she said she has been depressed for five months.
What she said 5 months ago, she went into depression.
What amount to that?
She says that the man emotionally and verbally abuses her.
That is it. It's a crime. So Abiba has to go and report. Like if she has reported this, maybe this thing wouldn't have happened.
Okay. So if she had reported the emotional abuse, but the emotional abuse, I'm living with my husband. My husband, emotionally abuses me.
Yes, you are not happy.
Yes, he reports that you're not happy?
No, he does something that constantly makes you unhappy, makes you go into depression.
You can report that to DOFSU?
Yes.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yes, you will not be jailed.
You know,
no, you'll be counseled. The
you will be
Domestic
yes.
Violence
Okay.
Act
Yes.
makes provision for some form of counseling for couples.
Okay. So what it means is that, and this is my takeaway from this particular conversation that we've just had, that if you're with a spouse who emotionally or verbally abuses you and it makes you unhappy, it makes you depressed, that you can go to DOFSU and talk to them and they will help you with counseling. Not that you're reporting your husband for him to be jailed or you're reporting your partner for him. I mean, women are beating men today too, so to be fair, we need to put that in. So not that you're reporting your partner for them to be arrested or anything, but that you will be giving counseling.
Yes.
So that's, I never knew this.
And that's the law.
I never knew this.
The the DV Act make it like, this is family issue, and the act is not to separate families. So when it happens, we can it depends on the gravity of the situation.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll be counseled and then go back to your family.
Okay.
And even the act says that when you are sent to court for a civil protection order, it's a private issue.
Yeah.
It's not held in open court.
Yeah.
It's held within a short time, maybe 2 weeks after hearing. And if it's necessary and relevant, the court will take steps to promote reconciliation by giving you a counselor.
Okay.
It's only when it's dangerous that the person will be asked to keep away from your home. In that situation, even if the perpetrator is the one who owns the home or who pays the rent, it's better that he or she stays out of the home so that there will be peace in the home for family and children.
Okay. Now, what it means is that assuming Habiba had made a report, and I'm sure she doesn't know. I mean, I'm a journalist. We hear these stories, we follow these stories. I don't know. I'm sure that she doesn't know that she could have reported the emotional abuse that she was going through. Then perhaps, based on the counseling, based on the report, the husband is free, that he would have advised himself not to go to the extent. So if it starts and you realize the trend, report it. Get some help so that it doesn't graduate from emotional and verbal abuse to physical abuse as it did in Habiba's story. But right now, Ms. Puedo, Habiba finds herself in this situation, but this is also a man who is a father of her children. And I think that is what makes it very difficult for us women to sometimes be able to take the decisions that we should take under such circumstances. What should Habiba do? The
Domestic Violence Act requires that she reports the matter to the police, and the police quickly to DOFSU, Domestic Violence and Victim Support Services Unit. They've been trained. So within the shortest possible time, they will arrange him before court. And based on the gravity of the matter, they'll decide whether he should either keep away from the home or keep away from Habiba for a while. Because the civil protection order usually lasts. There's a temporary one or the real order, interim and the real order. It lasts for about 12 months. Or he should vacate the home whilst taking care of the wife and children, or he should also go to a counselor to find out what his problem is. Maybe he has lost his job, maybe it's a learned habit. He saw his father beating women, and so he's also learned to beat women. Or maybe it's a cultural problem. Whatever it is, they can teach him how to handle his frustration and anger instead of taking it out on his poor wife or one of his wives. So let me come to you, Madam Kubleno. Now, this is a typical DOFSU matter, so I'm sure this is something that you can give us straightforward answers about specifically what has to be done. Now, the guy has beaten her up. That's a criminal offense, right?
Yeah, yes.
What's going to happen? What can happen?
Yeah, we are investigating the issue.
Who has this matter come to you already?
Yes, it's already with one of my coordinators.
Okay.
In the divisions.
Okay.
And she's working on it, and very soon the case will go to court.
The case is going to court.
Yeah.
So you're prosecuting Habiba's husband?
Yeah, we need to do that to serve as a deterrent to others. Court will decide what comes out of it. Okay. Looking at the nature of the issue. Okay. And in that case, if the complainant so wish, maybe court can, and with the apologies that are coming, The court can decide that we refer it to the alternative dispute resolution.
ADR. And
where,
what are usually the likely outcomes of an ADR in such situations?
Yeah, where they will be given counsel.
Both of them will be counseled.
And then the man will be put on probation not to do that up to some time. And the social welfare department will be monitoring them. And if he repeats or maybe not, then the court can take it. Him on.
And appreciate this. Usually the process is, and usually the aim of the state is not to break up families.
No.
So usually the focus, the bigger picture is to try and create avenues for reconciliation, which is why this process is. But we're told that there are still a lot of people who are going through this. And when we did the story yesterday, we have had people calling in to share their experiences. And again, the sentiment has been that DOFSU seem to have failed the people. They say that some of these things, when you even report to the police, they don't seem to have the capacity and the ability to handle it. So at the end of the day, it goes back, everybody, you see the person who abused you walking free. And that's what's making people continually abuse others, because nothing will happen to you.
You know, sometimes the complainants, they have some kind of objectives. A complainant comes to report a case, and you want to send the case because it tells you, I'm not saying that you should jail my husband.
Just put some fear in him.
Put some fear in him. Tell him not to beat me.
So these are some of the blockades that you have dealing with some of these issues?
Yeah, not actually that, because that makes us not to deal with their issue.
Okay.
You send the case to court. You know, sometimes they are not that, how do I say, not that...
they're not prepared to prosecute?
Not prepared to prosecute.
Or the court?
The court, judging it in the wisdom of the law, judging it, can decide that this case should go to alternative to social welfare.
We call it court to promote reconciliation. It's still under the power of the court.
And it's still under the power. Thank you very much for helping me.
Interesting, very interesting conversation. You're in a relationship, you're married, you're cohabiting, your partner is abusing you, verbally abusing you, emotionally abusing you, physically abusing you. Now what we're dealing with right now is physical abuse. I'm just hearing sexual abuse as well. Unfortunately, we won't have time to cover all of that. We need to wrap up. But before I went, Ms. Kublenu, you were talking about how you're responding to the fact that people think that DOFSU is not really doing much as far as dealing or handling these cases are concerned.
Yeah, our mandate is to protect the vulnerable group. We are to prosecute, we are to investigate and prosecute offenders. Now, in prosecuting offenders, we do our investigation, we send the case to court.
But it's about how the prosecution, how strong the case is, that will give the court the ability to act.
Yes, so it depends on the evidence that's available to us.
Okay.
Then we send it to court. But we also, in protecting families, or in protecting vulnerable groups, we give them counseling, we give them advice, we go with them protection to their homes if in case of taking their belongings. We send them to hospital, we accompany them to hospital according to the law, what the law asks us to do. But then, you know, our survivors.
What's the main challenge?
I'll tell you, there are survivors.
We need to wrap up because of our time.
Yeah,
but what's the main challenge for DOFSU?
The main challenge is that for DOFSU, our main challenge is we don't have
the resources. Human resource.
Support system. A survivor comes to me, I need to put a survivor in a safe home.
Okay.
We don't have it. A shelter. Okay. We don't have it. You know, those are the main challenges that we have.
Okay. Yes. Well, in the meantime, they're saying that if the abuse begins, it starts from somewhere, really, and you know it. So when it begins, when it begins, make a report. They won't arrest your partner. They will just give you both counseling so that it doesn't graduate from emotional abuse to sexual or physical abuse. I'll give you the final word, Ms. Boydo.
I'll say that there's a need for shelters. I don't believe in national or regional shelters. I believe in community participation in shelters.
Okay.
So in a village, we can have a home or a church house which will protect children and women, particularly because domestic violence is really a children and women issue more than men, based on the percentages. So we should have a church house in a community that can protect them. Or a district assembly. You know, the district assemblies are mandated to take care of children in the communities. And you know, children and human beings in general are human capital, so they need to be protected so that the nation can benefit from them when they are well developed. So the district assemblies should also come up with shelters.
For these people?
For these people.
Okay.
We have NGOs like Angela's Act Foundation, which has been in the helm of affairs when it comes to shelters.
Yeah.
They should be supported. You know, public sector sometimes gets funding and wants to control the funding, but public sector should not
spread it across.
They should spread it instead of keeping the funding, sitting on it and returning it to chest. Use NGOs. Look for those who are already in the field and support them. That's what happens in the West. A lot of private sector and NGO and civil and religious support must go into the issue of shelters. Because you can't send a victim back into the home with the perpetrator. It could end in murder.
All right. And that is certainly not what we want to hear. I mean, we would never have enough time to exhaust a conversation like abuse at home, domestic violence. We'll never have enough time. But I hope that you've taken something out of this conversation. Do not wait for it to graduate into physical or sexual abuse. When it starts with emotional, verbal abuse, make a report to DOFSU. They will not arrest the person. They will just give you counseling, and hopefully it will stop any further aggravation of the situation. Thank you very much, ladies, for coming. We hope that going forward we'll have a safer future for our women. Gloria Ofoyi-Boydo is president. She's a lawyer and president of WABA, Women Assistant and Business Association, and Evelyn Bobo Kublenu, she's the national coordinator for DOFSU.